Welcome back, you here with Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about the high IQ male. This is a topic brought on by my reading of Curse of the High IQ by Aaron Clarey, which is an interesting text. Its basic premise holds that much of society, the economy, the job market, the education system, the government, caters to those who are average to significantly below average in IQ. So if you happen to be above average, you will struggle in life just interacting with people, socializing, putting up with the BS in the educational system or the office, and just in general trying to find your path to your dreams. So he says your best option is either do something intellectually stimulating like being a doctor, an engineer, go into entrepreneurship, or alternatively, drop out of society, make a few bucks on the internet from consultancy or OnlyFans, and collect welfare. Just, enjoy what you can. I wasn't 100% persuaded by its arguments, but they certainly are thought-provoking. I would say if you want more information about IQ and its effect on society, check out Edward Dutton's work, which is well worth your time. That being said, I've always been a little skeptical of those who declare themselves to be high IQ, absent a real foundation that demonstrates it. Simply because of a lot of experiences, some in real life, but often on the internet.com. So this is Chris Delamo of Red Pill Philosophy. He was a longtime YouTuber, then either took his own channel down or YouTube, in fact, nuked it. Now he does some container house building enterprise. But he would do videos like, fellow libertarians, doing a lot of high IQ research on flat earth theory that you can't possibly understand, you low IQ plebs. That's where I say, is this just a self-congratulatory appellation that people use to establish a power relationship in a preemptive sense? So, you guys already will not be able to comprehend how intelligent and how brilliant I am, so therefore don't even try. I think it's a defense mechanism, a sense of self-importance. In fact, I have a term for it. It's the 160 IQ Libertarian, because it's usually a middle-aged white or Hispanic guy who's losing his hair and will have all this sense of himself like the big thinker. People come here because the society is so screwed up and only high IQ people belong in this circle. There was a dude on Hormaxer's channel, again, hairline going its own way, and he's talking about, I'm so high IQ, people can't compare to me, and the agencies want to get me. I'm like, yeah, sure, dude. I think the name was Reformed Paraplegic or something like that. Another guy who was a lot of fun on YouTube some years back was called Taoist Conservative, and he's this white dude with a fading hairline, really squinty Chuck Todd eyes like he's falling asleep, oversized, unfitted t-shirt, sitting in his kitchen talking about like, we must lovingly inform black people that they are low IQ. And it's just, you wonder, where do these people come from? And are they saying the whole high IQ thing as a way of kind of feeling they have a little bit more power? Because realistically, they don't. Like, they have very little influence in society. If you're a hardcore libertarian, which these guys are, you typically have next to no influence in the present, social scape, unless you are some figures that are more prominent. We'll talk about that in just a second. As for myself, I've never dabbled too much in that. I mean, I certainly will come across those on the internet who I feel are lower IQ than myself, in the sense that they can't understand the type of humor I use, or even if you just spell something out, they will just not be able to comprehend it. It doesn't matter how much de-escalation, how reasonable you are, they will just spurg. And that might be the byproduct of the public education system. I don't know. Outcome-based, inability to think outside of the box somewhat. With all that aside, I've said this before, when I was a kid, my parents didn't have very high expectations of me because I didn't really like reading. I didn't care about school. I remember when I was 3 years old, I would just be trolling the teacher, just deliberately giving the wrong answer because I thought it was funny to see her get all flustered. When I got to middle school age, I was a little bit more studious, but even there, if I didn't like the content, the subject matter, if I didn't think the assignment made any sense, I would pretty much make sure I could, sabotage it. So we were assigned Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which is a book I didn't like, and the assignment was equally stupid in my opinion. I'm not hating on the book, I just didn't like it. So I made that clear in my response. I got hauled into the office. This woman's like on the verge of tears. She's like, this is unacceptable. Usually you do great work, but this this is just so rude and spiteful. And I would be like, well, I get what you're saying, but you have to understand. Nope, zip it. I don't want to hear it. Nope, nope. That's a very feminine behavior. But some men do it, of course, where they try to control a conversation and constantly censor you, because if you have a chance to explain yourself, you're going to destroy their logic completely. Now, why do I bring that up? Because I think it relates to this question of agreeability and adaptability, which I'm not convinced that people who are higher IQ have. Like, the fact that I couldn't just do it, just put your head down and do it. Maybe you would say that's higher IQ, but is it really effective from like evolutionary perspective, even if we're just talking about like economic, social Darwinism? Because Clary himself, I don't think he was an investment banker. I believe he was like a community banker type. And that's not the best career, but if he had stuck around 20, 25 years, he'd probably be a vice president of some regional bank, six-figure salary, bonus, a nice 401k if you care about that, purchase a couple of rental properties along the way. He'd be doing okay. And no, it doesn't automatically mean he'd be married and divorced. Like, people always say that, but you could still be the same guy who's in the rat race, but you have a vasectomy or whatever. You don't mess around with a family. So it's not as simple as these people want to make you believe. It's not like you can't have success. Even if you feel you're higher IQ, you could still kind of just get along with it. Like, I've been offered jobs. I could go into a cubicle job and make easy money. It's all about, do you understand the system? You pretend to be on the email a little bit. You go to the meeting. You just talk to the boss enough to where they feel like you're relevant, make your name heard. It's not difficult, so you can make good money and have good benefits, even if you think it's kind of a joke. But is it higher IQ to say, screw it, I'm just walking away from all of that and making a little bit of money on the internet and using welfare? Is that higher IQ? I mean, from the standpoint of time preference, having more freedom perhaps, but there are some advantages if you actually have a career and you have higher income. So it's going to depend on the person. But I wonder, is it high IQ to really say screw the whole system, or is that potentially detrimental to you, especially if you have maybe offspring, because they're not going to have the same social status, they're not going to have the same resources probably if you just choose to go galt, but not really in the way we idealize, like shoot for the moon, more the just have this somewhat fatalistic existence. This brings me to an aspect I find fascinating about these high IQ online libertarians. Because if you were to take someone such as Gavin Newsom, oh, he's a low IQ socialist, but Gavin Newsom is at least an allegedly straight male, assuming he's not down low at Denny's. He's governor of California, he's got a pretty wife, he has girls on the side, at least that's the rumors. His kids are not going to suffer from the black pill realities that we all come across. Money is secured, he might be president one day, so he's achieved all that. Now, is he low IQ because he just carries the water of the woke left? Or is he maybe like, okay, this is the price you have to pay to become powerful and rich? On the opposite end, you take Palmer Luckey or Peter Thiel. These are high IQ guys. They went out there and created products that were marketable, not just to high IQ people, but also to the masses. And they've done very well for themselves. And they still donate politically and express libertarian or conservative viewpoints. But they're not kind of writing it off, resign, I'm just going to live on welfare because there's no point. And that's what I think is interesting when people claim to have a high IQ, but then they aspire to basically nothing. And you could say, well, it's better to have more time and you can stimulate yourself in the library or taking a road trip here or there. That's fine. But you just wonder, why aren't they doing something more? Is this the highest that you want to amount to? Because it's not like you can say Peter Thiel, oh, he's a total simp. No, he lives his own life. He makes his own decisions. Very few can say that. Very few can point to being that independent. He's even looking into immortality. So you say, who is really higher IQ and who's making good use of that IQ? And might there be people that are midwits, but they are better at using the system, and they're going to end up more powerful, more influential, and even wealthier than the so-called higher IQ people who have just given up. It also makes me wonder, if we could click our heels collectively, and that husband cuckolding Russian former shop assistant would appear, that old Yenta, and she waved her wand, and we had Galt Skulch overnight, would these high IQ libertarians on the internet be able to survive? If the anti-establishment became the establishment, no regulation, no welfare, cater towards the private sector, very minimal government contracting, these guys were not able to market this grievance-based stuff of, oh, you know, we have to be anti-establishment because the government spends too much, or you need to buy these sex toys to replace women. If they couldn't do that, and they had to actually go out and hand-to-mouth make a living, would they be able to survive? Or would they be the ones in their free time making videos whining about, the corporation's cutting our health care, making us work 70 hours a week, cutting our pay? I'm just curious, because I think that a lot of the fringe libertarianism you see is driven in large part by a sort of vendetta against the world, which we know the world's degenerate and corrupt. There's a lot of stupid people, but they almost feel that if only that system was in place, Galt Skulch would clean out all the parasites. Yeah, fair enough, it probably would. But are you certain you wouldn't be one of those parasites? That's the question that I think still prevails. So now we arrive at the final segment of this video, which relates to how Tradcath or Ortho Bros will weaponize IQ in their critiques of the Western world. These narratives usually entail something about how there's too much low IQ black or Arab immigration that's dumbing down society. At the same time, the Jews are promoting miscegenation so that we're all this diverse population of broccoli IQ individuals walking around. And you can have those discussions. But it creates a problem because these dudes are typically going to be a white normie who became a far-right religious type, or maybe an indigenous-looking Hispanic guy who's gone the same path. He thinks he's a Criollo. That's a very common phenomenon on the internet. They want to see themselves as being part of this high IQ population that ideally will reproduce and run society. The issue is that we have this jacked up soy mating market, and thus the girls they ideally want, the Caucasian trad or the Criollo trad, they're not interested in going to the Orthodox Church with all the old people. They want to look at what's on TikTok. So these guys have been almost priced or selected out, and in some cases they just don't want the quality, like the land whales. I understand that. But you've got God that's telling you, be fruitful and multiply. So you don't want to go against what God is saying, or what at least these echo chambers say, that you've got to have a bunch of kids and go against the depopulation agenda. So now they have to start looking elsewhere. But interestingly enough, they're not typically looking for high IQ women. That's not what we see. We typically hear a lot about Southeast Asia, like Cambodia, Vietnam, and of course the Philippines. But not so much China, Korea, and Japan anymore. Why might that be? Well, you have to think about it for a second. Go back to late 1800s, early 1900s. In the West, Asians, including Japanese, were not exactly held in high regard. They were seen as low IQ, kind of throwbacks, primitive. If you were a white dude in 1910 in California, you said, I'm going to marry a Japanese woman, like the daughter of an immigrant, people say, why the hell would you do that? Wouldn't be well received unless your family's Quaker or Unitarian. But over time, post-World War II, they embraced capitalism. They generally reject that traditional samurai culture that would have bred the nice geisha woman who's all about the family. If you want to get a window into that, I'll put a link to a book in the description. It's not long, but it's a beautiful picture of what that actually entailed between a man and a woman. But they embrace the modern economy, capitalism, and then the women have more money and they are empowered. They become feminist. They stop wanting to have kids, period, or for the most part. The men are doing stuff with silicone eggs. Similarly in Korea, in the 50s, Korea was a backwater. They mainly produced fish. That was their main export, I believe. And they engage in this modern economy. They are considered high IQ. Jared Taylor would tell you that. But you don't hear a lot of these trad bros wanting to go to Korea. Why is that? Because even during the PUA days, people were complaining that Korean women were feminists, they were hard, they would not have sex with guys easily. Why? They've got more money. They've got more that they can demand of people. I've even talked to guys from Korea who discussed how Korean men would go to Vietnam for wives or Cambodia because they were sick of the feminism of Korean women. And it's very much true in China. China has a large population, so you might have a better shot there. But the point is, you're going to the Philippines, let's say, which, of course, what is it? It is a poorer country where women have less overall empowerment and wealth. So just like I said in the other video, one man's prostitute is another man's trad wife. That's why a lot of these passport bros go there, for easy sex. You're not, oh, it's all about trad. Tell you what, your religion goes out the door if you can't eat. For a lot of women, they will do crazy stuff if they can't eat. So it's not to say there's no one there, but these countries are not renowned for high IQ people in the same way that Japan or Korea would be. So most of these dudes, they're not going to marry a doctor or a scientist. They're probably going to go with average to lower IQ village girl. And she might be a great mom and a great wife. She might cook and clean. But you're not going with a high IQ woman. So the question becomes, does high IQ not matter anymore? Are your kids going to be high IQ? Will they take just from your side? Or will they take also from her and it'll dumb it down? Or they can be educated. Oh, so it can be educated. So how much does IQ matter if you can just educate? Or is it all about a sliding scale? I suppose it could be. And then, of course, all of a sudden, the race angle doesn't matter as much. It's like, well, we can't pursue race idolatry. God doesn't like that. Really? But, you have an issue with it back home, obviously. So, in fact, I saw this really funny discussion. I kid you not. One of these trad bros got really triggered because I guess it was pointed out in this whole dynamic. He goes, it's just the Jews that don't want white men to sleep with Asian women. And I'm like, oh yeah. So all of a sudden, these base department Jews that these aren't the Jews we're looking for, that don't want white men to have kids with Asian women because that's destroying the race or something. It's a little funny, but it just shows you a lot of this stuff. I think is, like I said earlier, it's that preempting, it's that desire to have a status of some sort, but it's not necessarily being applied, and it's not consistent because you see these guys, they don't want to be an incel. They don't want to go against God's plan, so they're willing to throw the race and the IQ out the window to be able to fulfill that and not have to admit, oh, dude, we've got a crappy dating market and you've been priced out. So that's why I'm saying I wonder how much this IQ really matters to people, or it's just a kind of way of arguing online. Now, there's no question, again, if you look at Dutton's work, it is very interesting to see on a larger scale how IQ affects things. I'm just saying that the guys who are the biggest messengers of it don't always seem to be consistent and don't seem to be the ones that really take advantage of their IQ to do well. They seem to be very content with being average or indeed below average in terms of their life. And so I wanted to get you guys' opinions. Why do you think that is? Do you disagree with that? Do you march in line with the premise of Clary and Dutton? Or do you think IQ is maybe overblown?